Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Soapbox Slam, where I get on my soapbox and I talk about the things that I see going on. And today I want to get on my soapbox. And again, this is a continuation from the two previous soapbox that I've done. And there will be several more to go as I have examined, researched, and looked at the net profits, net income, net profits of many American corporations in the United States, pre-pandemic, pandemic, and post-pandemic, and identified the insane profits that they received, not even during just the pandemic, but even after the pandemic, and explain and make the case on how it is and why you and I, the American consumer, the working class, have been completely rooked and rused by the corporations, politicians, and banks. And that's what I'm on my soapbox today. Not yesterday, but a few days ago, I finally got posted. It took a while for me to upload just because uploading has been challenging. These are lengthy. This will be a bit lengthy too, but I've set forth the structure and the premise. It's going to be the same pretty much going through each sector of the economy that I go through, and the arguments that I make, I add more to it, but I'm making the same arguments. I'm identifying the same stuff, but more so the reason why there's all these different parts is I've divided all of my research into industry sectors. So the last one I did was the food industry. I presented 6 different food companies and their profits over the last 10 years, from 2023 to 2015. I identified what their CEO makes, I identified what their senior management makes, and then I identified what their working class makes. I identified what the average cost for a single individual is, and how much they need to make a year in order to just put a roof over their head. No disposable income. And when I talk about disposable income and the other expenses that would occur, I'm talking about car maintenance. I'm talking about healthcare bills that to pay health bills that aren't necessarily even covered in insurance, co-pays, dental work, eyeglass work. All of these other expenses are not included into this bare minimum, baseline minimum of what it requires for the majority of people to make in order to survive in this country, in order to put a roof over their head and operate that roof over their head. Shower, shit, shaves, feed themselves, and go to work. What that bare minimum looks like. I did that, and I will continue to do that for every sector that I've examined. I did the food industry, and I posted about that. I did the automobile industry, and I posted about that. Because the reason why I've done all of these industries, broken them down in their sectors and everything else, is it's my argument and my position that the inflation rate never, ever needed to happen. It's amazing that more and more people are talking about the food issue, and I'm glad they're talking about it. The disgusting part about it is both the Democrats and the Republicans are not addressing the issue 100%, and they who are culpable in the actual issue of inflation rate happening and enabled it, now want to backtrack and turncoat. The Republicans want to turncoat and say stupid ass comments, and the Democrats, especially in this election, want to try and present some sort of economic new plan to abate these issues and attack the corporations for gouging. Well, you know what? I'm not suggesting in any of these. Am I suggesting that you attack or punish the corporations by prosecution or anything like that? I say you punish them by taxing the fuck out of them. They gouged us, you gouge the fuck out of them in taxes. And until they give people living wages, you continue to gouge the fuck out of them in taxes. Give people the living wages, and I will relieve the tax that that I would like to levy on you. And that's the economic plan that I would have if I were the Democrats. But no, the Democrats want to put forth all these new economic plans that will only exacerbate the problem. And the reason why I say the Democrats will also exacerbate the problem is because they want to borrow more money from the Fed. The problem here is we keep borrowing money. Nobody wants to shut the shit down. Shut the corporations down, shut the banks down, and address the fucking issue. That's the problem. That's why I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. Kamala Harris's answer to this problem is not going to solve the problem. Just like Joe Biden just throwing money at the student loan issue is not solving the problem. The problem is inherent in the system that's set up. And I've done a post about student loans, and I'll do another post in the future about student loans. But what I am talking about and why I'm doing these posts and why I've done this research and everything else is because what I am talking about here, and the reason, I'm getting excited and everything else, so I apologize. But the truth of the matter is, my objective with Soapbox Slam is to enable and empower and inform the public on what's really going on from a working class perspective, not the hoity-toity elitist comments that come out of both CNN or Fox. And all of their pundits and commentators are all hypocritical people who are not addressing the issue, and all of them are engaged in culture war and social contract war, and none of them, and they're enabling and empowering this unbelievable inequity in income. And it serves them advantage too, because they have more money than we working class people. They are a part of they want to be wealthies and think that they're a part of the wealthy class. They're not, but they want to act and ignore all of the economic turmoil and economic laws and economic issues that are crippling American prosperity. That is why I don't support either one of these parties. And I begrudge these pundits who are elitist, who think they know better and think they know what they're talking about when they continue to talk about stuff that's engaged in culture war. And nonetheless, but it was funny and hilarious to me to listen to these pundits last night, both on the Fox networks and the conservative network and the liberal networks, both talking about it, but placating and never addressing the real issue. Not one of them, not one, the Republicans have sit there and said things like, oh, well, it's not, shame on Kamala Harris running for president. She's going to be a communist and a socialist. Her socialist communist plan is anti-American. That's what happened is all free capital and free market and capitalism. Well, that's a lie. And I'm telling you right now that the Republicans who are putting out that message are also deceiving you. They co-signed for all of this shit to happen too. And not only are they co-signing for all that shit to happen, they're also co-signing for the disparity and inequities in wages and everything else. And in addition, they want to continue to give tax breaks and give more tax breaks for the corporations who are already making insane profits. And they want to give more tax breaks for the super wealthy who already have more than enough money, and so-called let that trickle down. Well, we've been playing with trickle-down economics since the early 80s. And guess what? We have had less prosperity since the 80s on their so-called trickle-down philosophy. One thing that the Republicans have right is borrowing this money from the Fed is a detriment. All of the borrowed money from the Fed for the infrastructure plan and the COVID plan and but they don't talk about the borrowed money that went to Israel and the borrowed money that's gone to Ukraine and the borrowed money for everything that we've been borrowing money for is on the Republicans' hands. But they don't want to talk about that. What they want to do is paint Kamala Harris as some sort of socialist and communist. Well, Kamala, I don't say her name properly either. Kamala Harris isn't a socialist or a communist, and she has the right idea as far as wanting to fight for the people, but her answer to borrow money to do it and everything else is counterproductive. Her approach to fixing the system isn't fixing the system. It's just borrowing more money that's going to cause more inflation in the system. That's the problem with the Democratic ticket and the Democratic problem. They think that just because they've raised all this money by allowing the prices of goods, commodities, and services to go so they can create more tax revenue by allowing the inflation, that now they can create a new budget, borrow more money, and inflate the budget again. They're not trying to fix the economic problems. That is my problem with the Democratic Party. In addition to doing things like a total go green system when we cannot economically afford it. They're not doing these actions that would be advantageous for the people. They think that they are, but they can't do it when you're still in the pockets of the corporation. So when you do what the corporation wants you to do, you're making an advantage for the corporations. And that's what the Democrats are doing. So they have all these wonderful social programs, and they create new budgets based on social programs, based on the new revenue created by all of the high prices of things. Well, that's fucked up leadership and fucked up economics and horrible, horrible, horrible governance. Period. But the Republicans aren't doing any better because they don't even want you to survive. They do not want you to survive. They are enthralled with anger at the thought and concept of you asking for more money or demanding a minimum wage or anything like that. And they want to give more and more money back to the corporations who are already surplus billions and have been, and want to give more and more money to the CEOs who already are paying salaries yearly in $16 to $30 million a year in salary, but yet they can't give a living wage to the hourly worker. And if I said, as I said this before, there isn't a damn thing that any CEO today has done to bring a new product to market, has done anything innovative or technologically advancing to any corporation out there today. Not a food corporation, not a grocery store chain, not a car company, not a gas company, gasoline for our vehicles. There isn't a single thing that any CEO who is a CEO today of a major corporation has done to warrant those salaries. They did not earn it. If anybody's DEI, if anybody is DEI, it's the CEOs today. It's any fucking CEO today who has not brought, the only CEO, and I said this before, that brought something to market was Steve Jobs, and he deserved every dollar that he got for all of the innovation that he brought to market. That absolutely is capitalism. That absolutely he should reap the benefits of his rewards. I don't know too much about the tech industry, but people who brought new gaming systems or new games to the gaming systems, those people, yeah, they deserve to get paid for their intellectual property that was brought to market and capitalize off of that intellectual property. But after Mario Brothers has been in existence for 30, 40, 50 years now, the CEO of Mario Brothers does not deserve any major salary. All he's doing is steering the ship. Fucking make sure your balance sheets are budgeted right, and that's all you're fucking doing. And that's worth $36 million? Are you fucking crazy? Really? There isn't a CEO out there, food company, none of these CEOs deserve the wages that they are receiving. Not a single one of them, in my opinion. The people who deserve the increase in wages, the people who deserve the money at this point when it comes to these kind of corporations, the majority of corporations, are the everyday people who actually maintain the ship. That's who deserves it, in my opinion. Anyways, I did the food industry a few days ago. I did the automobile industry a few days ago, and I will continue to do, because I have looked at over 50 different corporations divided in different sectors, different industries, food industry, grocery store industry, gasoline industry, banking industry, streaming service industry, electronic industry, cell phone industry. I've divided all these up, compared to so-called, this is capitalism. It's real competition, but all of them are doing the exact same thing. All of them are paying the exact same pay. All of them are priced at the exact same price points. I mean, it's really a monopoly and everything else. All the streaming service. I did research on the streaming service. There was an article in the USA Today that was just out this past week, how all the streaming services are now bundling because, now the cost of streaming services is getting to be the exact same cost as it is to have cable. Somehow cable has managed to withstand the test of time. I think they've been subsidized by the government, or secretly subsidized to maintain this, until they brought all of the streaming services to the cost of television, and so that now they could so-called call it competition, but the price point is all the same. But that's another. I did all of those, so we will examine that, and I'll talk more about that at that point. But the point I'm making is, I've examined all of these industries, and pre-pandemic, pandemic, and post-pandemic, the trend is the exact same. So the inflation that they keep expounding, and even the Republicans, oh, supply chain. The supply chain is the real reason why the price was. That's bullshit. And these pundits need to start calling these people who are economists who are out for an agenda for their own pockets, who are being paid to say this bullshit, is criminal as far as I'm concerned. But it's exceptionally misleading, because if you follow the numbers and if you follow what has happened, and if you say it was supply chain issues and it was the price of gasoline and everything else, well, then the price that is reflected that we're paying would not give corporations over $1 billion above what they were making pre-pandemic and during pandemic. And the point I'm making is, if you had to set new prices to compensate for supply chain demand and for gasoline demand and everything else, then you wouldn't have insane profits, doubling profits. You would still have profits, yes. You may still sell more units, yes, but you're not going to double and triple profits. Okay? Post-pandemic, you would not have soaring profits that were double what they were during pandemic and double what they were pre-pandemic, because the supply chain demand and the gasoline demand would cause for the market, if it was truly free capital and truly capitalism, would call for the price to be set at a point where you would make just a little bit more money, but not double. So it's not supply chain, and it's not the gas prices that cause them to make double the profits. That's stupid. That is new math. That is fuzzy math. That is imaginary math. And any Republican, and it's mostly Republicans saying bullshit like that, who puts that message out there, is deliberately deceiving you. And I beg you to go look at the numbers yourself. If you don't trust that I know how to read, I know I'm just a dumb nigga. So if you can't trust that I know how to read a yearly report and read the information, then go Google the profits yourself. And you make sense of how doubling and tripling profits through and post-pandemic and the insane profits that are made over what was made prior to pandemic. That being 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. How is it, if it's just supply chain, the prices had to go, then how did that happen? How is it 3 times the amount? It's unjustifiable. It's inexplicable, because it was a money grab, and it was co-signed by your corporations and your politicians. And the motive for that is that because the prices were higher, governments, local municipalities, state governments were able to bring in more revenue off of taxing, bring in more revenue to shore up their budgets. The way that governments shore up their budget is by taxing everybody. And you get more money off of taxing a product that is $10 than you do taxing a product that is $3. You can't go into a grocery store today and not have a single item be at least $5. The majority of them are more than $5. But again, that's the food industry, and this Soapbox is an extension. I've done all these industries. Right now, what we're going to talk about today is the grocery store chains. So you got the corporations that make the food, and then they put them into a grocery store, and the grocery store chains also jacked up the prices on the foods so that they would reap double profits. Do you see what's happening here? The inflation rate, not inflation, and all the misleading comments that they make about inflation and everything else. The inflation rate, that being the cost of everything across the board: food, cars, insurances, gasoline, airline tickets, streaming services, cell phones, all these things all went up, and they never had to. None of it ever had to happen, even on a supply chain argument. Even in basic principles of supply and demand, I won't deny that we made a run out of supplies during the pandemic when you shut companies down for 3 months, right? I won't deny that. But what I'm saying about all of that is, if your politicians were truly in it for the American people, if they were truly got your backs, they would have went into overproduction when we went back to work. we would have went into accelerated production. Even you Republicans who like Vivek Ramaswamy, he talked about this. And me and Vivek Ramaswamy are definitely on the same page. I don't like the guy. Fuck that guy. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have ideas or assessments about what's going on in the economy that aren't accurate. You could be accurate about something and me not like you. I don't have to like Vivek Ramaswamy to acknowledge the fact that his assessment of what the problem is accurate. His assessment of the problem is 100% accurate. And that's what also I'm trying to explain when I do these soapboxes. You know, that's going on. But my soapboxes are intended to inform the people what's going on and get them to challenge what they're being told. I also have an ulterior motive in the soapbox by trying to convince people to stop blind party politics and become independents. That way you're requiring the political parties to pander to our needs. Now, I fight for working class people. I'm working class. I don't pretend to think that I'm a part of the wealthy just because I make more than $150,000 and that I'm somehow better than, which is how a lot of people behave. Oh, the inflation isn't bothering them. They're not working class. They're better than working class, and somehow they're better than, and that's how they act. Completely unhumanitarian and foul as far as I'm concerned. Hey, to each his own. That's how they want to be. That's how they can be. But what I present are facts and this research, and what I am trying to reveal and encourage is that people become independent thinkers, people become critical thinkers, and people start holding their politicians to task, holding them accountable for their behaviors and actions and decisions that enabled situations like this. Decisions to continue to borrow unbelievable amounts of money from a bank and then cause the cost of all of our goods and services and commodities to go up so they can make up the difference and pay back what they borrowed. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I believe that any money borrowed from the Fed, which I don't want to borrow money from the Fed, but any money that is borrowed from the Fed is lockboxed to American soil only. You can spend it on American projects. You can spend it on research. You can spend it on infrastructure. You can spend it on shoring up through another pandemic, shoring up production, and then subsidizing that so that you can slightly ease it out. I support stuff like that. I support the idea of being able to go to a Federal Reserve Bank and borrow money to prop up or anything else. If you want to borrow money to make a big plan to educate all of our people in science and maths, yeah, I would, so that we can lead the way when it comes to technology and technological advancements and everything else. I support borrowing a whole bunch of money for that, and I don't mind paying the immediate expenditure to make that happen, that being the cost of goods and services and commodities and income tax, to ensure that 10 years from now, or 20 years, a generation from now, that the younger generation is so smart that they're creating technologies left and right that skyrocket our American economy. Yeah, I 100% am about that. But that's borrowing money to invest in ourselves. We borrow money to invest in fucking Israel. We borrow money to invest in fucking Ukraine. We borrow money to steal resources from other countries, say it's for our American way of life, and then turn it over to the corporation so that the country, our tax dollars that allowed us to, the money that we borrowed that allowed us to go steal these resources, never come back to us. We turn over the resources to some corporation that price gouges us. If we're going to borrow money from the Fed to go steal resources like cobalt in another country, then by golly, then I feel like the federal government should be owning that cobalt and should never be turned over. And if a company wants to buy our cobalt from us, then they can buy our cobalt from us. But we own it if we're borrowing money from the Feds, not eminent domain, turn it over and then give it to a private corporation and we reap no benefit from it. We being the working class. Because I can guarantee you those goddamn politicians that enabled and voted for that, they got a kickback. Anyways, this soapbox that I'm doing today, I did a soapbox on the food industry. I did a soapbox on the auto industry, and I'll continue to do soapboxes on all these industries that I've examined. But today is actually the grocery store chains, because the grocery store chains also made insane profits coming out of the pandemic and through the pandemic in comparison to what that was prior to pandemic. They pay their CEOs insane amounts of money and their senior management insane amounts of money, and their working class doesn't even make enough money for the working wage. That's the conundrum. That's what we're in. That's what I'm fighting about. That's what I'm revealing to you all with all these soapboxes. They may be mundane, they may be redundant, I may be repeating things that I'm saying, but I want to get through to you guys that we have been cheated. We have been pillaged. We have been pillaged and cheated by your representatives, both Democrat and Republican, and the corporations. None of this never ever had to happen. The supply chain argument and free market capitalism and everything else, all these excuses that the Republicans make, and then the Democrats wanting to borrow more money to fix the problem, is not gonna work. We're doing the exact same thing, expecting a different result. This is not sustainable. Like I said before, keep these numbers in mind, okay? $100 million will pay 11,000 employees $90,000 a year. $100 million will pay 11,000 employees $90,000 a year. Okay. Just for a quick example, the company Stellantis, which is Ford, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Stellantis is the parent company. In the entire United States, they only have 11,000 employees. They're going to lay off 2,500. So they're going to bring their 11,000 to 8,000. Okay? Not every corporation out there has that many employees. But I guarantee you, every corporation out there has more than $100 million of disposable income and net profit. A lot of these companies may only have 4,000 employees, but they still have way more than $100 million in net profit, way more. And yet they pay their hourly workers non-sustainable living wages. So keep that in mind. $100 million will pay 11,000 employees $90,000 a year. Okay? Hourly wage times 40 hours a week equals your weekly pay. Your weekly pay times 52 weeks, there are 52 weeks in a year, equals your gross yearly pay. That does not account for the fact that you have to pay taxes. You have to pay taxes on that. And so what you real take home versus what they calculate as your gross yearly pay and what you actually take home is going to be at least $10,000 less. At least $10,000 less. $10,000 less, somewhere in that ballpark. The national average rent is $1,536. That times 12, because there's 12 months in a year, is about $18,000 in rent. $18,432 in rent, based on the national average. However, I will point out that's the national average. In Chicago, this is all for a one-bedroom, a single individual, for a one-bedroom apartment in the Chicagoland area is $1,843. In New York, it's $3,812. In Los Angeles, it's $2,123. In Dallas, it's $1,400. In Atlanta, it's $1,600. That's for a one-bedroom apartment for a single individual and just rent. Multiply those numbers times 12, and that's how much you have to make at a base minimum just to sign a contract or a lease. That's not turning on the gas. That's not turning on the electricity. That's not turning on any internet. That's not turning on. That's not paying your water bill, your garbage bill. That's not paying for food. That's not paying for the gas that you need to go to and from work. That's not paying the bare minimums. That's just signing a lease for a year. Okay, but the national average, that's being, and you see that in Wisconsin and some of these smaller towns and cities and states where the average rent is $1,500, even a little more, 16, 17, 15. It's what it is. Okay, so that's the rent. Okay, when you start adding the average expenses of an individual, just the bare minimum expenses for an individual, Okay, you're talking your rent, your car insurance, your car payment, your electric bill, your residential gas bill, your internet bill, your water bill, your garbage bill, your food bill, and then the transportation that you need to get to and from work. Okay, when you start adding all of that up, at a bare minimum, a person needs to make $3,266 a month. A year, that's $39,201 a year. Just to do that. Now, that's not any disposable income. That's not a streaming service. That's not a haircut. That's not for any medical bills. There's no medical or prescriptions, no medical bills, no prescriptions, no medical insurance. None of that is included in that number. $39,201. Call it $40,000 a year just to put a single person to get a one-bedroom apartment and put a roof over their head. Needs a bare minimum of $40,000 income a year in order to just do that. Again, no extras. Okay? I mean, if you want the numbers, I did them before, I'll do them again. You know, the average rent, $1,539. The average car insurance is $194. The average car payment is somewhere around $500. The average electric bill is about $151. The other residential gas bill is $63. The average internet bill is $89. The average water bill is $40. The average garbage bill is $25. The average food bill is anywhere between $300 to $450 a month. And then gasoline, streaming service, all the medical expense, all those other ones are not included into that number of $40,000 a year, just for a single individual to put a roof over their head and live. Okay? Those are the numbers. Period. Go on Indeed. Start tallying up those positions and hourly wages and what they're paying. Start examining what the yearly... If you don't believe me, do it yourself. I've done it. I've looked at it all across what the entry pay is. And then I look for it for each one of these industries that I'm about to reveal to you. Now, having said all that, we can get deeper in. I talked about those kind of things. Now, let's talk about the national grocery store chains. Because they've walked away with a whole lot of money. Pandemic and post-pandemic. They pay their CEOs a lot of money. They pay their senior managements very livable wages, and they pay entry-level people shit. Albertsons, Kroger's, Walmart, Target, Costco. I tried to look up Aldi, but Aldi is actually a German company, and I couldn't find their quarterly and yearly reports posted anywhere to actually examine what Aldi's profits were. But we'll do those just for shits and grins right now. So, yeah, like I was saying about all this, now, I already observed and we already talked about the other two in part one and part two, the automobile industry, the food industry. And what I want to report to today, as I said, was these grocery store chains, these national grocery store chains. And what I'm really adamant about is not only are these companies exceptionally profitable and have the means and capability of paying a living wage with disposable income, and currently they have money grabbed and price gouged for their own benefit. And that's what we're on this soapbox about, and that's what I'm adamantly trying to demonstrate by doing many of these soapboxes. So here we go. Albertsons in 2023, $1.2 billion, $1,210,000,000 as net income, meaning total revenue brought in minus total operating costs, total expenses, total operating cost, revenue minus expense, giving us the net income of $1,210 million net profit for 2023 for Albertsons. Albertsons has many different grocery stores under their umbrella. The main corporation is Albertsons, and then all of the subsidiary grocery stores underneath Albertsons. In 2023, $1.2 billion. In 2022, $1.2 billion. In 2021, coming out of the pandemic, $850 million. In 2020, okay, the middle of the pandemic, $466 million. At the beginning of the pandemic, $131 million. In 2018, $46 million. Okay? So as you can see, now there wasn't any numbers. They only gave numbers. I could only find quarterly reports, yearly reports for 2018 to 2023. They don't post 2017, 2016, and 2015. I'm sure they're somewhere in, I'm sure those reports are somewhere around $46 million. Okay? Now, as you can see, from 2018 at $46 million, in 2019, right in the pandemic, they double from 46 to $131 million. And then again, in the pandemic, they triple the following year from 131 million to 466 million. And then coming out of the pandemic, they're at 850 million. Okay? So they have doubled and doubled and doubled. Now, this is the grocery store chain. That's not even the food industry. General Mills makes the food and then they put it in the stores. And these stores, like Albertson and all the Albertson subsidiaries, Albertson sets another price on top of what General Mills sets, and that's the price that we're paying. And whatever price that they put. Now remember, the food itself has a rise in price and a rise in profits, and the store that sells the food has an insane doubling and tripling rise in profits. Literally from the beginning, the year before the pandemic, they went from $46 million to last year, $1.2 billion. Do you see the price gouging? Now that's the grocery store chains. I did food items themselves on the last post. This is part 3, the actual store that sells the food. They too are in on the price gouge. So-called supply chain, so-called gas that so-called caused the inflation rate to go up, it never ever needed to go up. That's the facts. The CEO of Albertson is a guy by the name of Vivek Sankaran. He pays himself a salary of $15.1 million. The hourly workers, the stock shelf people, even the night managers, the produce managers, produce people, stockers, shoppers, the store shoppers who fill the online orders, fulfillments, the cashiers, all of those people, the hourly worker at Albertsons chains, all of the grocery stores that are funded and supported by Albertsons only make $12 to $18 an hour. Their senior management makes $160,000 a year. Okay, $12 to $18 an hour. Remember, I told you that a person, a single individual who lives in the United States who wants to get a 1-bedroom apartment and support themselves has to make $3,266 a month in order to get an apartment. That's with no disposable income. None. That's $39,201 a year. At $12 to $18 an hour, any of the clerks at the grocery store, any of the stock shelf people at the store, any of the night managers at the store and everything else, all of them, the highest paid is $18 an hour. I'm telling you now, $20 an hour doesn't, $25 an hour pays you $52,000 a year. That's $25 an hour, 40 hours a week. At $18 an hour, you make about 30, at $18 an hour, I actually know someone who makes exactly that, and their yearly salary The yearly amount of the money that they make is about $34,000 a year. They make $18 an hour. $34,000 a year. So that person can never get an apartment because they're already in debt. It requires $39,201 in order to get a one-bedroom apartment on the national average. Now, people I know live in Chicago and they still only make $18 an hour. Make this make sense. Yet, you can go from Albertsons and go through in a pandemic and literally go right before pandemic in 2018, only making $46 million, and last year, 2023, be a $1.2 billion company. Make that make sense. And you tell me how this isn't a price gouge. You tell me why the Republicans think that the CEO of Albertsons and the Albertsons Corporation deserves a tax break. This is what you want to support? You want to support Republican people who have that perspective? So-called Republican people who want a nuclear family? So Republican people who want a wife at home and a one man supporting his family? A nuclear 2.2 kids family? That is how he's going to do it? Or are you only talking about the people who are senior management who make 106? Those are the only people who should have kids. That's what you're saying. Right, Republicans? That's what you're saying. Please, be clear. Let's make this make sense. But fuck, I'll be damned if I support the Democrats just because you agree that a living wage needs to occur with disposable income. I'll be damned if I support your agenda because you want to keep borrowing fucking money from the feds and causing the goddamn inflation rates to go up. While you're still taking money from the corporations. I'm not co-signing for that. I'm not co-signing for a go green agenda. I'm not where you borrow money for that. I'm not co-signing for you borrowing money so that you can anything. I'm done co-signing for any government, any branch, any political party of government wanting to borrow money. Goddamn greedy ass banks who are causing this bullshit. Banks, representatives, and corporation. Those are the problems. My solutions to that problem: tax the fuck out of the corporations and the CEO until they give these people a living wage. Living wage being anywhere between $80,000 to $100,000 a year. That's new taxable income by the majority of the population who now have new wages, and you can make up through income tax that debt that we owe. Prices stay stagnant or back to a below 2% inflation rate. No more borrowing money and sending it to everybody else. All borrowed money needs to be invested on American soil. That's Albertsons. Let's look at Kroger's. Yes, Kroger's too. Kroger's has, again, a whole bunch of chains and everything else. The big company. 2023, $2.2 billion. 2022, $1.6 billion. 2021, $2.5 billion. That's the pandemic. 2020, $1.6 billion. Beginning of the pandemic, $3 billion. Okay, now 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015, all high 1.8, 1.9 billion, $1.7 billion. So essentially, before the pandemic, they're 1 something billion. Then you go into the pandemic, 3 billion and high $2 billion profits. High $3 and $2 billion profits since the pandemic. Rodney McMillan is the CEO. He pays himself $15,700,000 a year. $15.7 million a year. The average worker at a Kroger's grocery store makes $10 to $14 an hour. The average senior member of a senior management at a grocery store for Kroger's makes $145,000 a year to $220,000 a year. Yeah. Yep. That's Kroger's. So 10 to 14. They come nowhere close to $39,000 a year for a roof over their head as an individual. Nowhere close. Everybody at Kroger's is using somebody who's on welfare. Everybody. Because according to the state, welfare, that's those kind of wages. And since they have welfare to work programs, that's the kind of welfare to work program where they send all the welfare people to work at Kroger's and still receive welfare. And that's probably a part of the business model for Kroger's and Kroger chains, which is disgusting. That was a business model for Amazon. I don't know if they still do that at Amazon. I do have Amazon down as a box store that we examine, and I'll do the research and present their corporate business policies and business models as far as that's concerned. So I'll get back to you on that. But I'm telling you now, that's what that looks like right there. Because, you know, the federal government says the poverty line is less than $18,000 a year. And what I am proving right here is the majority of jobs that I listed yesterday at the food manufacturing companies and that I listed at the car production plants and everything else. The majority of all these people who have these jobs they range between $35,000 and $55,000 a year without taxes. Once you tax it, it's going to go down. All of these people of all these jobs that I'm pointing out, and this money in the budget and the distribution of money, all of those people who are maintaining the shit, all of them are below the poverty level. All of them. The poverty line that they have nationally established at $18,000 is actually, in reality, that poverty level, in reality, is the national average of rent plus all of the mandatory expenses that are needed to supply that rent. That's where the poverty line is. That's where it's at. This is no expendable income, disposable income. That's where the poverty level's at. The poverty level is almost $20,000 less. The national poverty level is almost $20,000 less than the reality of what it costs to put a roof over your head in this country. But they can't accept that. They, being Republicans and Democrats, can't accept that as a reality. They can't see how that makes us a third world country. It's foul. It's disgusting. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. $10 to $14 an hour. That's what they pay the grocery store clerks, the night auditors, the managers, all that stuff at Kroger stores. That's what they pay. Walmart made in 2023 $15.5 billion. 2022, 11.6. 2022, $11.6 billion. 2021, pandemic, $13 billion. 2020, $13.6 billion. 2020, $13.5 billion. 2019, beginning of the pandemic, $14.8 billion. Now listen to this. In 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015, Walmart only made $6 billion in 18, $9 billion in 17, $12 billion and $10 billion in 16 and 15. My. What a jump to go from 6 and 9 billion to 14 and 15 billion through the pandemic and out of the pandemic. And you tell me that there is a justifiable expense, there's a supply chain and market set those prices. The market did that? No, that was artificial inflation. All for the local governments to be able to money grab and shore up their budgets, their budget shortcomings, for federal government to shore up its budget shortcomings, for corporations to get rich on tax price gouging and everything else. A concerted effort. And it's like this across the board in every industry. I'm talking about the actual distribution house, a grocery store. These are their profits. The last post I did was the actual food production company, their profits. I did the automobile industry, their profits. I have many more industries to reveal. Look at the gas companies, they did the same thing. BP, Exxon, Valero, they did the same thing. All across the board. The insurance companies, they did the same thing. all across the board. This was a money grab, and your political readers, both Democrat and Republicans, assertive effort in order to shore up their budget shortcomings federally and locally by allowing the prices to be high so they can gain more tax revenue based on taxes. The CEO of Walmart, Doug McMillon, he pays himself $27 million. The average hourly worker at Walmart makes $14 to $17 an hour. The senior management at Walmart makes $168,000 to $255,000 a year. That's Walmart. Target, the bougie Target that no one wants to shop at Walmart and they think they're going to Target is supposed to be somehow better and everything else. Target did the exact same thing. Yes, sir. Well, I'll give Target some credit, actually. Their numbers are a little more consistent. They gouged prices all the way through the pandemic, but then prices seem to have kind of returned or fell off because they're back to, in 2023, prices are back to where they were back in 2017 and 2016. Okay? Target, 2023, 2.7, 2022, 6.9, 2021, 4.3, 2020, 3.9, 2019, 2.9, 2018, 2.9, 2017, 2.7. So 2018, 2017, 2016 are actually all consistent because each year they only made about $100 million more each year since 2015 until the pandemic. That's consistent. And if the market only raised the prices to account for higher wages, account for gas inflation, and account for supply chain demands, then their 2019, 2020, 2021, 22, 23 profits would mirror exactly what they were in 2016, 2017, 2018, give plus or minus $200 million, not plus or minus $500 to $1 billion. And that's what it is. An increase of $500 million to $1 billion. That's what it is. That's a money grab. That's an assertive effort by representatives, local, nationally, Republican and Democrat, and corporation to do that. Like I said, I tried to do Aldi, but that's a German company, and I couldn't get a hold of their quarterly reports, so I'm not able to do Aldi's. But Costco, same thing. Oh, the CEO of Target is a guy by the name of Brian Cornell. He pays himself $19 million. The average worker at Target makes $14 an hour to $24 an hour. The senior management at Target makes $127,000 to $178,000. Yep. $14 to $24 an hour. Minimum 14, they're never going to be able to get a house on their own. Maximum 24, that's about $52,000 a year, maybe $55,000 a year. After taxes and everything else, it's just barely above 40, and it costs $40,000 just to have no disposable income, just to put a roof over your head and operate that house with the roof. That's it. No disposable income. $40,000. The max pay at Target, all you can do is get a roof over your head, and you better not have a medical expense. You better not have you will not have disposable income to do anything other than maybe get a streaming device, maybe get a cell phone, maybe pay for some glasses, maybe pay for your prescriptions. That's it. That's it. $24 an hour. That's all you buy. That's all you get. That's $50,000 a year. That's it. That is it. You're all right. You got a roof over your head. You can be a single individual on the top end of Target, not the low end, not entry level. $14 an hour isn't enough to do that. You're never going to be able to do that. You better sell your ass, get on OnlyFans, find a gay lover, or find a woman who's going to take care of you, or find a man who's going to take care of you, or I don't know what you're going to do if you start out in life and you only and your bar is at your only job you can get is at Target. You're not making a life that way. You better be a stripper at night and a store clerk by day. Yet your Republicans want you to build a nuclear family, but they can't pay people wages this way. They can't they want to give more tax breaks to these companies who did the shit like this. Even without the pandemic and everything else, when you're $3 billion in profit, $100 million will pay 11,000 employees $90,000 a year. $3.3 billion, which is what Target made in 2016. You know what? I think they could go without 100 million and be at $3.263 billion and still be okay paying $90,000 to these employees who are only at $14 to $24 an hour. And all of those employees that are at $14 to $24, now that they're making $90,000 an hour, guess what? They're in a new tax bracket. Guess what? They're contributing to the income tax coffers for the national government a hell of a lot more than trying to tax the corporations and trying to tax CEOs and make up the difference that way. My opinion of taxing the corporations and the CEOs is to punish the fuck out of them for raping American society, for pillaging the worker, for all their job is maintaining the ship. They haven't done anything new. They didn't bring a new product to market. Maybe if there's a new Albertsons store opening, maybe someone deserves a little more money for opening a new store. But the maintenance that is occurring and everyday process and dealing with the public, the reward belongs to the people. The entry-level jobs at $14 to $24, that's who deserves it. Costco, 2023, $6.2 billion. 2022, $5.8 billion. 2021, $5 billion. 2020, $4 billion. 2019, $3.7 billion. Whoa. Now, 2018, before the pandemic, $3 billion, $3.1 billion. So from 2018, where it's at 3.1, to 2019, where it's at 3.7, that's $600 million that they increased at the beginning of the pandemic. They actually clear all the way up to $4 billion and in the middle of the pandemic. And then at the end of the pandemic, they're at $5 billion. So Costco made $2 billion more through the pandemic and out than before the pandemic, because all the numbers in 2018, 3.1, 2017, 2.6, 2016, 2.4, and then 2015, 2.3. So from 2015 to 2018, it's about $100 million increase each year over year. Okay, that makes sense. A little more sold, a little more units sold, a little more people buying at Costco and everything else. Year over year, it grows. But to double and triple and go from, in 2018, 3.1 billion to 2023, $6 billion. Nah. You tripled. $3 to $6 billion. You tripled, Costco. And the CEO of Costco is a guy by the name of Rich Vitaris. He pays himself $26 million a year, and the average worker at Costco makes $14 to $21 an hour. Senior management makes $179,000 to $258,000 a year. Okay, that's just a quick glimpse of the grocery store, the national grocery store chains, and their profits. The last post I did was the actual food production corporations and their profits. And the one before that, I did the automobile industry and their profits. So what I am revealing to you all is this is not supply chain issue. This is not free market. This is not capitalism. This is not inflation rate. None of that is the cause of those kind of profits and that going on. And it's not just the food industry. As you will see in all the subsequent posts that I do, and the one that I did, the future posts that I do, and the previous one that I did on the automobile industry, what you are going to see is this exact same reflection. This was an assertive effort on the American economy by all of the corporations and your elected representatives to enable this. Why? What's the motive? Allowing these prices to be this way meant we pay more in taxes on goods, services, and commodities. Meaning that these state governments and federal governments are actually able to shore up their tax base, their tax revenue base, based on the higher prices of things. That's their motive for the Republicans and the Democrats, your elected representatives. The motive for the CEO is pure greed. And I mean, look at what they pay themselves. I say that especially in Western civilization and in America, the unbelievable greediness of this. With the car companies, the Japanese vehicles, they don't pay their CEOs the way the American pays their CEOs. The max pays that the Japanese CEOs were making, as I reported, if you go back and look at the automobile industry that I did, Toyota only pays their CEO $3 million. Honda only paid their CEO $3 million. Kia only paid their CEO $2 million. GM pays their CEO $37 million. Ford pays their CEO $27 million. No, I got that wrong. Sorry. GM, I think, paid only $27 million to theirs. Ford paid $27, and lo and behold, the beautiful Dodge Ram Stellantis, Chrysler Dodge Ram Jeep, their CEO paid themselves $40 million. See what I'm showing you guys here? The Republicans want to grant tax breaks for this bullshit, and tax breaks for the rich CEOs, and think that that's going to trickle down to someone who makes $14 an hour. Where the fuck is the trickle down to that? Excuse me, where the fuck is that trickle down? Y'all pulled the big one over the majority of people who are Republicans. Especially those who are Republicans in the lower working middle class. Y'all really pulled the wool over those people's eyes. And these fucking Democrats that want to borrow and fight social culture wars and all this other bullshit instead of attacking and correcting the system. Going out and borrowing more money and prosecuting the corporations isn't the way to go about this. Penalize the fuck out of them through taxation. Create laws that say anytime you have an inflation rate or an inflation within a corporation, that wages automatically are raised the percentage of the inflation. Create laws like that. That would be working for the people. They're not going to do it because they're in on it. They need, in order to continue to borrow this money, they need the prices of goods, services, and commodities to go up, which means you and I are fucked. That's the truth. So, listen, I ranted, I raved. I know I'm animated. Try to have a good day or a great weekend and be kind. That's me on my soapbox. The next soapbox, I've already done the gas companies. I think that would be a good one to do. Because again, gasoline, same story. It's the same with the gasoline company. And I also want to point out before I sign off a few things. Just remember, any corporation that has a net loss for a year does not have to pay taxes. I believe it's for the next 3 years, and they receive a tax refund based on the amount of money that they paid in taxes the previous year. So when people talk about Donald Trump not paying taxes, bear in mind, Donald Trump was bankrupt. So part of the reason why he didn't pay taxes for a period in time was the fact that he was bankrupt. He didn't have any money. It was a net loss. And because he had a net loss, he received a tax refund and didn't have to pay taxes for, I think it was up to 3 years. So remember, that's people manipulating and not telling the whole story. I don't go to bat for Donald Trump. That's not what this is. I'm not going to bat for Donald Trump. I do not support Donald Trump. I do not trust that man. And his message when he ran is not who he is. And if you look at the people that he's putting in place for his cabinet members, people like Jamie Dimon at the bank and all these other people, there is no draining the swamp with Donald Trump. Donald Trump needs the swamp to protect him. Donald Trump has always wanted to be a part of the elite class. Okay? He is the epitome of bourgeoisie. And so Donald Trump is not the answer. He ran in his first presidential election. He ran as a champion for the people, but we see what he will do. And I don't support that. That doesn't mean I support the fucking Democrats either, because they got it wrong too. They got it wrong too. And that's the truth. So the next one I think we'll look at, because I've already done them and looked at their books and everything else, will be the gas companies. And again, the inflation rate and why gas prices went up to what they did is not necessary. It was never necessary. There's no supply chain issue. That was a hoax. That was a lie. That was a deliberate manipulation. And that's also why this is not free market. Remember, that's why this is not free market and capitalism, because it's artificially inflated and it was artificially tamped down. Demand was created because they deliberately didn't allow the supply to go into overproduction so that they can try to maintain the prices that they were setting things at. It was a deliberate, assertive effort. There's no real supply chain issue. And if the federal government wanted to really